Hey guys, I'm Jax and I just saw the new horror film Smile 2. So naturally, I'm never going to smile again. So it's been a big couple of weeks for evil smiles. First we got Art the Clown and then Joker. Two clowns perverting the joy and wonder of a smile. So now we've got everybody's third to seventh favorite film curse, the Smile Curse. But does this sequel leave a smile on your dial? Or does Smile 2, never stop and smiling, smile too much, turning that smile into a frown? Well, I think it kind of depends on two things. One, did you like Smile 1 Original Recipe Smile? If so, you will like this because it's more of the same. And second, are you a fan of a certain type of sequel? Does this reinvent the wheel? No. Does this break out of its cocoon that is It Follows but Trauma or The Ring but Smiles? No. This is a sequel in the lazy here we go again sense, but also a sequel that does kind of prove that bigger can be better. Mostly. Smile 2 is a classic old school horror sequel in the best and potentially worst ways possible. It's bloodier, it's bigger, it's got more singing. But don't worry, Joker 2 haters, it doesn't have that much singing. It doesn't even have trap levels of pop singing. Two of my favorite things in this world that have always felt so polar opposite is pop music and horror films. And I never really thought I'd see them collide in such an exciting yet different way that we have had this year. It's been a really big year for pop stars in horror. First we got How to Catch a Serial Killer featuring Taylor Swift, and now we've got What If Miley Cyrus Had to Fight the Smile Curse. Okay, so just to be clear, I really like this film. I might go even so far to say I loved this film. But let's be real. This is pretty much just like a beat for beat remake / rehash of the first film, Smile 1 Original Recipe Smile. On one hand, I found that to be like a little frustrating at times because I feel like I knew what to expect, and this film couldn't trick or shock or surprise me in the same way when it was playing the exact same magic tricks it did in the first Smile film. In Smile Origins, it had so many twists and turns and surprises, reveals and revelations, and all of them were really effective because I didn't know what the film was going to do. I didn't know what to expect. But now knowing the type of magic tricks that the Smile universe is going to play, I found some of them a little repetitive, and even though a lot of the twists and turns did still really work, I found some of them to be a little like, oh yeah, we're doing that again, are we? Okay, cool. Like, I'm not hating this, but yeah, no, we did this, didn't we? In the first one, we're just doing the same thing at the exact same point in the film as well. I mean, sure. But then on the other hand, I kind of love that some horror franchises kind of have similar DNA, and we just kind of deal with different characters and locations and experiences, but it's kind of the same movie again and again and again. I think some horror franchises, that's kind of the fun of it. You can watch like 5 in a row and you're like, yeah, they're all kind of the same, but they're kind of different. This one's got that different actor in it. I'm not selling that. I love that. For instance, Final Destination, Nightmare on Elm Street, a third example of a horror franchise that essentially does the same movie again and again and again and again and again, but I'm like, I like that. I like that we're just dealing with this smile curse, and we're just dealing with a new person who has to run about just being psychologically tormented, manipulated, and essentially just trolled by this evil smile demon entity thingy. Sometimes a horror franchise can just do that, and I think that's kind of fun. And honestly, I think the Smile franchise and the Smile Curse are the perfect kind of vehicle to do the same film again and again and again. Once again, this sounds like I'm being negative. I actually really like this mostly. I love this premise. I love the Smile Curse. The simple yet effective perversion of the smile into something evil is really effective. I really like it, and I also love how the Smile Curse has this really weird, twisted, like almost sense of humor. It has this really twisted sense of kind of like playing with its food, like a cat playing with a mouse or whatever, and it loves to like psychologically torment and manipulate and gaslight, and is essentially just a massive troll. And that's pretty funny and also really scary and horrifying. And I think in the first film, I thought it was a really interesting metaphor for mental illness and how everybody around this person who is mentally ill and sick, no one believes them. No one believes the things that they are seeing. And of course, because it's a horror film, what they're saying is very real and spooky. And that's really sad and tragic and heartbreaking, but kind of exciting as well. And I think this film does that really, really well again. In the first one, it was someone who was afraid of having the same hereditary mental illness as their mother. And in this one, it's a Miley Cyrus type who's dealing with an ex-addiction. She was in a car crash before the film, and she's got all the trauma from that stuff. And so everybody around her thinks she's either relapsed and is on drugs again, or is withdrawing, or just having a psychological meltdown and breakdown because of the spotlight of being this mega famous pop star. And all of that stuff around people not believing her and her kind of losing her mind, I think works really, really effectively. And I think it kind of makes Smile 2 kind of stand up and be more than just like a simple, it's an evil, spooky curse and they smile at you. Which it does do that. But I think what really works for me with this franchise, in the first one and now in this one, is that it really takes its time to let us grow with this character. We really like kind of empathize with her, even though after a couple of moments you go, should I be empathizing with her? Is she the worst person who's ever lived? Maybe, but I think that's really fun. I loved a really flawed lead hero character, but I think that kind of psychological slow burn side of this franchise is really, really interesting. This film is not going to win you over if you didn't like the first one though. If you thought the first one should have been a tight 90-minute evil smile movie, this movie is like 20 minutes longer. This movie is over 2 hours long, which is crazy for a premise that is, what if an evil smile curse smiled at you a bunch and then you screamed and ran around and lost your mind? You'd think that should be a tight 90, maybe even 86 minutes long. But no, this is 2 hours and 8 minutes long. But I think it gives us time to kind of dive into the psychology of this main character and kind of go through this, like, essentially her just losing her mind and breaking down and having the worst week of her life. One really big difference in this film compared to the other is it is so much bloodier. It is so gory. Some of the kills in this are crazy gory compared to the first film. Of course, if anybody's been watching horror films recently and you saw Terrifier 3 with the other smiling perverted freak Art the Clown, then no, this film is not gory or bloody in any way. In fact, it's just like a PG Saturday morning cartoon in comparison. But if you forget about that one franchise, it is super, super gory. Some of the kills are extremely effective. I found all of the gore to be really realistic and brutal. There's two moments in particular where I was just like, oh my, we're doing this, are we? I don't remember Smile 1 doing anything like this. And there's one moment right at the end where it does something very similar to the first film, which I think for some people is like kind of almost jumping the shark or jumping the smiling shark. That's nothing. But for me, the first film did it at the end. So this film doing the same thing, but even bigger and crazier and wild. I absolutely loved it. I feel like the last 5 minutes make me forgive so many issues I have in the third act, because there are some really weird choices just in terms of how the Smile monster kind of manipulates and torments and gaslights, and how like kind of it does its thing, where I question why we do it like that. Like the whole third act, I have so many issues, but then it all leads to the final scene, which I think is so glorious and so fun and so horrifying, and leads into some really exciting, interesting ways for us to do Smile 3, the final smile, that I kind of forgive every issue I have in terms of, I don't want to say lazy and dumb and bad, but a lot of the plot points and how they kind of suddenly go, ooh, and they like kind of flip the table like a child who's lost Monopoly. He just flips the table and he's like, we're playing a different game now. The film does that, and I will say it, it's lazy, dumb, and bad writing, but it leads us to that final 5 minutes, which was so glorious and so amazing. So I kind of understand why he does it as well in the third act, because it's like the director clearly wants to have his cake and eat it too, and I don't think he can, and I don't think he does it effectively, and it is bad writing for a lot of that back half in terms of just, it does certain twists and reveals where you're like, okay, but what? No, I don't think that. And I feel like I will not enjoy a rewatch as much, because so much of it I'll be like, yeah, but what about that thing that's going to happen? Why even, like, what are we even doing here? But the fact that he wants to have his cake and eat it too, I respect, because I also want to have the cake, but then eat it too. I want to eat that cake at the end, because, when you bite into that cake at the end, it tastes good. I don't know. I'm still kind of thinking about how I feel about that entire third act, but also, like, that's just what the Smile Monster does, so what am I complaining about? I love the Smile Monster. He's a freak, and I like that. He just loves to play with his food, which is gross and weird. Don't play with your food. Just eat your food, you freak. But, you know, each to their own. I'm not trying to play with your food, shame any kind of monster that smiles or doesn't smile. Okay, so let's talk the acting, because I feel like even if you hate this film, we can all agree, we can all come together and agree that the acting in this film by our lead, Naomi Scott, who plays Sky Riley, who's our Miley Cyrus type, is sensational. She is so overwhelmingly spectacular. There's like the first 10-15 minutes where she's like, I'm a pop star, I changed my hair, what do you guys think? And she's on like TV and stuff, and I'm like, no, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to care and empathize with this character. I don't know if I want to follow her for over 2 hours dealing with a smile curse. But then there's just suddenly this turn, this change, as she starts actually dealing with the curse, and she's slowly psychologically tormented, and she slowly goes more and more insane, and more manic, and more crazy, and more ferociously angry and intense. I was like, I cannot believe how good a performance this is. Just the manic, wide-eyed insanity as she just slowly psychologically breaks down, just going through an absolute meltdown. It is so much fun. She delivers such a spectacular performance. Just these big eyes, just this wild, crazy performance. I think it might be one of, if not my favorite performance of the year. That's not true. I saw The Substance. It is the second best performance of the year. In conclusion, I give Smile 2 a big, creepy, horrifying smile out of one big, creepy, horrifying smile.